You really have to be selective about who you spend time with and who you allow to speak into your life. Whose voice do you allow to live in your head? It is hard when you're married to somebody who doesn't encourage you and doesn't support you, doesn't build you up and doesn't cherish you. But you know what? Go find people that do. Divorce or not divorce, go find people that do.
Welcome to the Thriving After Divorce podcast, where you learn the secrets to reclaim your life and turn your breakup into your breakthrough. Transformation expert, internationally published author, and online show host Tanya Marie Dubé will help you quickly pick up and move on as you tune into interviews with some pretty cool experts from around the world, showing you how to live your best life after divorce. If you're ready to learn the skills to finally put your divorce behind you for good, dig down really deep, and step into your highest self, then you're in the right place. Here's your host, online educator and mom of two, Tanya Marie Dubé.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy you're back with us this week. I would like to quickly remind you to please like, comment, subscribe, share, and please review this podcast. I'll remind you that with my online video series, we reached over 300,000 women all over the world. And my goal with this podcast is to reach 1 million women globally. So with your help, I know we can do this. When you teach a woman, you teach an entire community, and the love just spreads. So please share this with your community, and let's reach this goal together. Today's interview is with Maureen Zappala. Maureen started with a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Notre Dame. And besides her time as a NASA rocket scientist, she's had success in direct sales, fitness instruction, and motherhood. Now, as a professional speaker, she challenges organizations to push the envelope of their own expectations to propel their teams to peak performance. She is a rock star. So in this episode, my friend Maureen walks us through her brutal divorce and how she rebuilt her life from complete and utter fear to completely shifting gears and building a life she absolutely loves. I love these kinds of stories because we get that, right? We can identify with that. We know what it means to feel alone and to be vulnerable, uncertain of what the future holds. It can hold us captive for a very long time if we let it. So Maureen had to dig really deep and learn to overcome imposter syndrome so she could step into the future she wanted, and she has done an amazing job. She's going to teach you how. So let's welcome Maureen. Hi, Maureen. It's so great to have you here today. How are you?
Oh, Tanya Marie, I'm great. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. It's a beautiful sunny day in Toronto. Of course, I'm happy.
Stay here in Cleveland. Sunny and happy.
Oh, that's amazing. I want to jump right in. Are you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, so I want to start with who you serve and what has led you to this work.
Who I serve, that's always, I need to get it succinct in a simple mouthful. My background is engineering. I used to work at NASA. I target smart people, because I'm one of them, smart, accomplished, and degreed, credentialed, successful people that struggle with that inner voice that says, wow, I'm really not as smart as everybody thinks I am. I feel a little bit like a fake because I understand that. So I reach out to them. I teach them how to silence that accusing voice that says you're not smart, because they really are.
Right. Okay. So now what has led you to this work?
Well, I've been a speaker for probably about 8 or 9 years and used to speak on leadership, just a generic, kind of a vanilla leadership topic. And in the speaking world, there's really, you really need to set yourself apart. You really need to be memorable and different. And I thought, what can make me memorable and different? And I was searching for something that really grabbed my soul and stumbled on this topic. And it was, seriously, it was like angels sang. I thought, oh, this is my topic because I get this. I felt that when I used to work at NASA. I deconstructed how I got past all that. And I thought, people need to hear this. And I would start talking about it just in conversation. And the reaction I got, how it resonated with people, how just light bulbs went off in people's head. I thought, yeah, there's a need for this topic and I love it. I want to help people like that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. And I think that everybody has this little voice inside that says, you can't do it. And especially for those who, are going through divorce and separation. This is probably not the first bit of adversity, that we've been through. We've probably all been through something before. And then, of course, those, negative voices keep coming back like, see, I told you. So I'm happy that you do this work. This is life-changing work.
Thank you. I know it was for me, so I can only hope that it's the same for people that I touch.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So now I want to get into you've been divorced now for almost 2 years, right? Coming up this year in
Correct.
November.
It'll be November, 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Right. And you were married for 21 years. So I'm wondering, how did you push through the anxiety that divorce brings, along with the fears about the future, fears about money, and stepping into the woman that you are today?
Yeah, it was, and boy, how to summarize the journey in, just a few sentences, because it was a brutal journey. It was a really difficult, contentious divorce that was pulling apart a pretty unsatisfying, unhappy marriage. So it wasn't just the divorce that was the emotional turmoil. It was, the many years that led up to it. We were married for 21 years, but we dated for 5 years before that. So we had a long history. The turmoil that I felt as I realized that our marriage was really going to be over. And like I said, we had a difficult marriage. So I struggled so hard to make it better and do what I could do. And we went to counseling and therapy and classes and we did it. We fought hard to keep this marriage together, but it just didn't work. The anxiety that I felt was, oh my gosh, I waited so long to get married and I'm going to be single again. How am I've been married for so long. How am I going to do this on my own? Mm-hmm. He was a great provider. So I worked for a while at NASA. I quit my job at NASA somewhere in the middle of our marriage. So for many years, I was a stay-at-home mom, not really earning a strong income. So I thought, how am I going to do this? I don't even know what the state of our finances are. Mm-hmm. So financially, I was worried. I was, of course, worried about the impact on the kids. My kids were in their teens at the time. Well, they still are. How are they going to handle it? My ex-husband is a very strong personality, and I was really kind of afraid about a battle. That's just the way he is. He just battles in life. So I was wondering, do I have the intestinal fortitude to go through this? I like to think that, okay, let's just put it out there. This isn't working. Let's put an end to it and, sign the paper and be done. Well, it was not that easy. So, it was just even before the divorce, the litigation itself was about 1.5 years. And prior to that, it was about 7 months of non-litigated mediation. So wow. It was a long, I realized, I was like, this is never going to be done. It was never going to be done.
It certainly feels like that, doesn't it? And it's one of the hardest things to deal with is facing this person that you thought you knew. Yeah. But then all of a sudden, like I read a really funny quote by Nora Ephron, who I absolutely love. I love Nora Ephron. And she said something, and I'm sorry if I butcher it, but it was something along the lines of never marry someone you can't divorce. Yeah. And I was like that at the time when I read that. I was, still married, wasn't as unhappy as I was toward the end, but I wasn't thrilled, but I was, I picked this book up, this yellow book that she had written. And I think that was the very first quote that opened the entire book. And I remember just laughing at that. And when I went through, when I left my marriage and I was out on my own again, that quote came back at me like full force. And I remembered it and I was like, oh, yeah, right.
A lot of wisdom in that. There's a lot of wisdom in that.
There's a lot of wisdom in that.
I remember thinking, while we were going through the process, it was hard to stay married to him. It was harder to stop being married to him.
Yeah. Oh,
it was hard.
That's a statement. I could agree with you there in my situation. Yes. I hear that 100%. Now, what did you do to bring it all together for yourself? Because you're quite successful at everything that you do now. And you were an engineer at NASA. That rocks my world. I love that. And you've done so many things. You've been a part of Toastmasters for so long. You're a speaker. You've written books. What was the process for you in picking up the pieces on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I married late in life. I was close to 20. Let's see, I was 28. Was I 28 when I met him, and then 34 when we married? So by that time, I was pretty well established as a single person, as a career person in my job at NASA, and I loved it. I am a strong personality. I have a lot of goals. I'm pretty organized. I'm very people oriented. I can just make things happen. When I got married, like I said, my husband was a great provider, and he was very traditional, and he really didn't like that I wanted to stay working. He didn't make me quit, but when I told him I was ready to quit, he didn't protest. And then, of course, kids came along, and I was absorbed in, loving on my kids, being a stay-at-home mom. Something outside of me kept saying, though, you love your kids, but I don't know, is there something else that you can or should be doing with your life?
Mhm.
And my ex-husband was never really a big fan of that. And that got to be a real rub, because as the kids got older and be more independent, I started seeing other things in my life that I wanted to do or could do, different things. I didn't want to go back to engineering. Learned that I loved speaking, like I mentioned before,
Mhm.
and began to do a lot more speaking. And then with speaking comes meeting people and traveling and writing. And he did not like that. And so I thought, okay, fine. I'm going to be the good wife. I'm going to throttle back and kind of respect his wishes, which, boy, that was tough. Not only was it hard to
Oppressive.
do, it was pretty destructive on me.
Mhm.
Really, I just was a shell of a person.
Mhm.
So as, we were going through the process of the divorce, my vision always was, I need to get back to doing what I really felt called to do. I'm a very spiritual person. I really felt my place in the world. I had a bigger calling. Not that parenting my kids is not a great calling. It is. I loved my kid. Love my kids. My time with them is almost over. My daughter is a senior in high school, started today. And so,
Mhm.
year or so down the road, I'm in a different phase. So what am I going to do with my world? So I started thinking about, just being more aggressive with doing more speaking, creating content, doing some writing. Also, I'm thinking at some point I'm going to have to financially take, really take the reins here and support myself.
Yeah.
When we were going through the divorce, his contention always was, well, you're a trained engineer, you need to go back to engineering. And I thought, I don't want to go back to engineering. My
Mhm.
skills are so rusty. I'm also 50, now I'm 57, but at the time I was 55. Who's going to hire a 55-year-old used to be engineer? Nobody.
Mhm.
So I really had to reinvent myself.
That's amazing. I love that you understood, well, at least this is how I'm taking it. I'm sure there's probably a lot of emotion involved, but I love how you understood that you had to take the reins, you needed to make a shift, and that it was just going to have to be that way. Because what are you left with otherwise? You can get all caught up in the emotion of starting over or feeling victimized. But the point is, that you recognize that you're in control.
Yeah.
You're in control. You're in control of your thoughts and you're in control of your actions. So I love that you took those steps. That's fantastic. And,
And I
you know,
think too, people, if you dig deep, you can really surprise yourself what you find down there in terms of
mhm.
resilience and ability and resourcefulness and stick-to-itiveness and just depth of commitment and things that fire up your soul, that grab your heart and push you forward. I mean, so few people really live a bigger life, or a life bigger than what they should. They just
Mhm.
think they live too small. And stepping out and making it bigger, it's so exciting.
I have to say, one of the things that I've always loved about pushing myself a little bit harder every time is that I don't know what's coming. I
Yeah.
mean, I do to some degree because, I mean, I work backwards. I don't know about you, but I have the goal. I know what the goal is. And then I divide that goal up. So if I decide I'm going to reach this goal in a year, I figure out what I need to do to get that goal. And then I divide up the tasks by month. And then I divide up those tasks by week. And then I know what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So I know what's coming, but inside of all of that, I'm really not sure of all the opportunity that will come my way and some of the adversity I'm going to face and the ups and the downs and the roller coaster ride. But I love that. I love that I don't know.
Yeah, it's a great adventure. Every day is a great adventure, because I'm probably not as disciplined to work backwards like you are. Some things I am. Some of my short-term are goals. If I've got like this last book I wrote, I had a deadline. It was like 3 months away. I'm like, oh, okay, I've got 3 months to get a book in my hand. And so I broke it down very much like what you just described. But those year-long goals, those 5-year-long goals, I get frustrated with myself. I don't stay committed. So what I have to do then is, what am I doing today? What's my top 5 today that will get me to my goal? And, I'm a list maker, I'm a list checker. I just plow through what has to get done today.
I love that you said you make a list of 5 and not 25.
Well, I do have a list of 25. I just picked the top 5 off.
Okay, you want to.
Laundry is usually not it.
Do you know how I handle that insane to-do list? Because we all have the crazy to-do list, right? But this is how I do it. In the morning, I do a brain dump. So I get it all out of my system, everything that's on my mind. The bill that I forgot to pay, the activity the children need to go do, the friend I forgot to write back, the newsletter I've got to write. I get all of that stuff out of my head in the morning, and then I do it again before bed.
That's great. That's great. So then you could kind of take inventory of what you did and what you got left to do tomorrow.
And what's not even important to think about until Wednesday kind of thing. Yeah. Now I want to talk about the fact that you speak on imposter syndrome. So can you tell us what that is and what your advice is to push through this? And the reason that I want to get into this with you specifically is that I know many of my listeners want to start over, just like we were just talking about, but so many things are holding them back and most of it is in their mind, and we really want them to step into their future. So absolutely, imposter syndrome has to be one of those things.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is it's a unique form of self-doubt that affects smart, intelligent, successful people that are usually degreed, certified, credentialed, maybe very celebrated, very influential. A lot of people in the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, people in performing arts, people in professional fields like lawyers and accountants, they all struggle with this. And it's like, as I said earlier, it's the fear that when you walk into your job, you look around, you say, oh my gosh, they all really think I know much more than what I do. And the gap between what I know and what I think they think I know is pretty big. And I feel like a fake. I feel like I'm living in that gap and I'm a fake. And any minute they're going to figure it out. The problem with imposter syndrome is that you can't enjoy your own success. You may have a great resume of all these accomplishments and accolades and degrees, but you look at it and you say, yeah, but I only got the job because I knew somebody, or because they needed to hire a woman, or because I looked good that day. You don't internalize your skills, you externalize your success. And when you do that, you can't enjoy it because you can't repeat something that seems so haphazard or uncontrolled. We don't internalize and embrace our own success. We don't say, I did that or I got that because I earned it. I worked hard. I'm smart. I'm accomplished. I did it. Yeah. So for women going through a divorce, and I tell you, this really came to, I guess it kind of came to real fruition while I was going through my own divorce. I'd been away from engineering for so long. And I heard my ex-husband's voice all the time in my head saying, for example, when I used to sell cosmetics, he's in sales. I never was. He would always say, you're not built for sales. So I kind of adopted it. Like, okay, I'm not built for sales. And so I still hear that voice. And I had to work hard to overcome that voice and say, you know what? That's kind of a learned skill. If I can learn selling, why can't I do selling? Liking it is something different from learning it. Anybody can learn it. Liking it, totally different thing.
That's true.
So, I had to really talk myself through that, you're not as smart as everybody thinks you are. As I was going through my divorce, one of the things, and people that struggle with imposter syndrome suffer from this too, because everybody thinks I'm not as smart. They struggle alone. And reaching out and drawing people into your struggle is hard. Well, I learned going through my divorce, man, oh man, I could not do that alone. Legally, I didn't know what was going on. Financially, I needed to be protected. Emotionally, socially, spiritually, I needed to step outside of my own little scary little bubble world and kind of swallow my pride and say, I need help. I don't know what to do. And that helped me so much in talking down that imposter voice. It's like, okay, you don't know what you're doing. So what? Ask for help.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's hard. I wanted to tell you, I grew up with a family who was really happy to remind me, I was a very, very academic kid, and my grades were off the charts. Like there was an honor roll, then there was a super honor roll, and I was the only person on it.
Oh, wow.
I know. And I prided myself on that, specifically because I was in foster care and I grew up that way. And I overheard someone once say I was going to be a statistic. And when I looked that word up, I was like, oh no, I'm not. So I became an overachiever. But my point in telling you that is just that I grew up with this family who was really happy to teach me to stay in my lane and to not want outside of my station, to not dream too big. So if I came home with, a 98% on my math test, I was kind of shot down for that. So I just want to say that for a lot of us, we've grown up inside of either our own families or society, as a whole, that says you can't say you're beautiful. Yep. You can't call yourself smart. Yep. All of these kinds of like special accolades you give yourself just mean that you're selfish, self-centered, self-absorbed. Yeah. And so it's really a retraining of your brain too, because you have to shut off all of those voices that were so happy to tell you that you weren't worthy. Now, can I add something to that?
Sure.
This is what I've learned about that for myself personally, is when I look back on people who were happy to tell me that I wasn't good enough, people who had the wherewithal to say something like that to my face or to try to plant seeds in my head, that I wasn't going to be capable. I look back on that now and what I see is just really, I was a mirror for them and they were just talking about themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
So true.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true. You probably know the quote, and I think it's attributed to Eleanor Roosevelt, and I wish I could quote it, word for word, because it's a beautiful quote about, when you unleash your own greatness, it gives other people permission to do the same. And I'm like horribly paraphrasing it. Reverse, when people condemn you, it's because they don't want you to grow, because that forces them to look at their own ungrowth. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that every step that you take that moves you forward and into your future is going to put a microscope on the relationships that everybody has with themselves who are around you, which is why, if nobody's ever heard this before who's listening, or maybe some of you have and some of you have not, there's great talk about who you surround yourself with for a reason. Like your top 5 people, they say you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that is absolutely true, which is why a lot of entrepreneurs, when they really get going, they really put on the blinders and they shut everything down around them. And suddenly your top mentors are Oprah and Tony Robbins and Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield and Marianne Williamson, because they're all about encouraging you to become your greatest self.
Yeah, so true. You really have to be selective about who you spend time with and who you allow to speak into your life, whose voice do you allow to live in your head. And it is hard when you're married to somebody who doesn't encourage you and doesn't support you, doesn't build you up, and doesn't cherish you. But you know what? Go find people that do.
Yeah.
I mean, divorce or not divorce, go find people that do.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I had to do the exact same thing. I'm not good in toxic spaces. I feel like I'm a bit of an empath and, I will take on other people's emotions. So I have to be very careful who I spend my time with. Yeah. So for me, I needed to get out of my situation in order to become the woman that I am and who I'm still driving myself to be. Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for talking about that. I wanted to now hit a little bit on this. So my understanding of you is that you're used to not having a supportive partner in your life. You were with someone for so long who just didn't get you and didn't see the importance of you pursuing your goals. How did you find your way to pushing yourself past your comfort zone over and over again?
Boy, I wish I could, give you a formulaic answer. I just think it was partly in my DNA. And partly out of necessity, because I did not want to sit around and mope and lament and cry. And I remember as I was going through the divorce too, as I mentioned, I'm a very spiritual person. One of the prayers I prayed over and over and over and over and over is that, Lord, please do not let me get bitter in the middle of all this. Just keep my heart light, keep my spirit up, keep my perspective hopeful and positive. God really honored me on that. I never really got bitter. Now I got angry and really pissed off sometimes, but it just because of what I saw was a colossal injustice, even in the legal system, but just with, what my ex-husband was doing. It didn't last long. It was like, okay, this is part of my story. And from today on, I'm going to continue to write a new story. I'm not going to sink down in bitterness. I'm not going to sink down in helplessness. I have skills. I have passion. I have opportunities. I have friends. Let's go out and see what I can do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I still struggle because I'm not the mover and shaker that I really wish that I could be. But boy, oh boy, am I having a blast in life. Such a different person than I was.
Wow. That's fantastic. I love that. I absolutely.
And even though, you know what, my divorce has been final for 2 years, we're still not done with litigation. We still have another issue that's still pending in court. And it's just, to me, it's like, okay, so it's the fly at the picnic. You just kind of swish it out of the way and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's it. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious that you just said that. I've made that analogy so many times that going through this whole divorce process, I have clients who were married to narcissists, and so this really works well for them as well, is if you can start to imagine, because narcissists specifically will come in when they feel really, really low about themselves and start making a ruckus in your life, and they'll disappear for months. And then they come back in and they make a ruckus. And at the time, if you're not skilled to deal with this, it just creates a ton of anxiety inside of yourself. Some clients of mine can't eat, some can't sleep. The anticipation of what's coming is like too much. If you start to understand what narcissistic, personality disorder is and you get your head around it, it really does feel like a fly that comes in, you buzz it away, it goes away, it comes back.
That is so true because my ex-husband definitely fits that pattern, that narcissist pattern. And so one of the things that I absolutely, my lawyer was familiar with the personality disorder. A lot of people were, and they kept telling me, get educated, get educated, because talking about the problem does not solve the problem. You need to understand the problem so that you can figure out how you can react through the problem. So I did. I read everything I can get my hands on about narcissism.
Good for you.
And it kind of gave me compassion for the guy.
Right. It does do that. And
okay, he's doing this because that's kind of like just the way he's wired. And get over it, Maureen. Stand your ground, be firm, and fight for what's fair and what's yours. But just don't get sucked into the vortex of insanity.
Mm-hmm.
The way he's wired.
Yeah. I think it's really important to have compassion first for lots of things. And I think when it comes to, narcissism, it's important to have compassion for them, but from a distance. They don't need to know you have compassion for them because they'll.
Oh boy, that's a great point.
Yeah, because they'll just take advantage, right? The whole thing is such a soul-sucking experience. Yeah, you can do it from a distance. Like I do, I teach my clients to do these, and I do it too, to do these meditations and these visualizations where you're sharing space with the person who's creating the most, wreaking the most havoc in your life. And in these meditations, because I do believe in transference of energy, I do believe that if I'm sending you love on a daily basis, you're bound to feel that if it's real and it's authentic. You're not going to feel it in some woo-woo way. It may be the reason you're having such a great day. I don't really understand that stuff entirely, but I do know that when I go out in the world happy, and sharing myself, with people, extending myself and holding doors and saying hello and starting conversations and being a person who listens, I'm receiving a whole lot of greatness back in my life. So I do believe in the power of that, through visualization and meditation, and compassion from a distance is what I always say.
A lot of wisdom in that, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I've learned from a lot of very wise people. So now I wanted to also talk about your book, Pushing the Envelope, because this was the starting ground for you, wasn't it, for this topic with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, it's the first book I've written exclusively on imposter syndrome. This is my fourth book, actually, and parts of it I've put in one of my other books. But this one deals especially with imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, this was I loved writing this book. I've been writing and speaking about this topic for quite a while, blogging and writing articles and speaking on it. So I had a lot of content. My challenge was, like I said earlier, and I'm not lying, I had a deadline to get it done because I was invited to speak at a conference and they were allowing me to bring the book to sell to the people at the conference.
Okay.
So they said, do you have a book to sell? I'm like, yeah, I do. And I'm thinking, I better write the book. And it's 6 weeks away. So I did the impossible, wrote and produced a book in 6 weeks, self-published it. got it printed locally, had it in my hand within 6 weeks. And here's what it did for me. Aside from the fact it's a great book, teaches people the techniques that I teach when I speak that are very effective and very simple, it completely broke my belief barrier when I said, there's no way I could write a book in 6 weeks.
Wow.
My other two books took well over a year. One book took 2 years. The other two books took close to a year, and completely blew my belief barrier out of the water. 6 weeks, start to finish, book done. So when people say, "Yeah, I'd love to write a book, I don't have the time," I'm like, I ain't buying it. You have a story. Okay, maybe it's not going to be 6 weeks. It was a little crazy. I don't recommend everybody do it, but yeah, do it. If it's a topic or a message or a story that you love, guess what? Someone else is going to love it, and you need to get it out there. So yeah, I was really excited to get this book done. It's called Pushing Your Envelope because it's a throwback to my days at NASA when I used to work in jet propulsion research. Pushing your envelope is an aeronautics term for basically running an aircraft past its normal safe operating condition. And you do it intentionally in a controlled test environment to see what it does to the system. And so, that's what we do every day as entrepreneurs. And and your whole focus, Tanya, is having people push their envelope, get out of their comfort zone, get out of their safety zone, find out what they're really made of, find out they really can do way more than they think they can. So,
well, two things stuck out to me about what you were just saying about writing it in 6 weeks. Two things popped right into my head. The first thing is there really is something to be said for lighting a fire underneath you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? There really is something to be said for that. And I think that as scary as that might feel, the distraction that provides when you're going through divorce is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, through the bulk of my divorce, I was writing another book. This was the book that took 2 years. It's a book about the history of Ohio State football, which I didn't even go to Ohio State. I went to Notre Dame, but a friend of mine is an expert in OSU, and he asked me to co-author it because I'm a good writer. And just what you just said about it being a distraction, it was a project that was my lifesaver because it was fun, interesting. I felt productive. I felt my brain was challenged. I didn't have time to get boohoo, sobby, weepy over what I was going through. And it was a big seller, and it's helping to pay for my son's college tuition. So
amazing. Now, all of these things that we've talked about, you've done in the space of the last 2 years. Is that right?
Probably a little longer than that. Yeah, probably a little long because I separated 3 years ago and started getting pretty busy on the Ohio State book around that time, maybe a little bit before. I'm losing track of time, but yeah.
My point in asking that is that I want people to, those who are listening to this, there's something really special there that, 2 years, 3 years, you can get a lot done if you make the decision, to stop focusing on what has gone wrong and start focusing on all the beautiful things that make you who you are, and start over, start something new. Get yourself into a project and make that project a 3-month project. It may end up being a 6-month project, but do projects that are 3 months at a time that get you fully immersed in something so that you're not sitting there with idle time. You have something to do when the kids go off with their father, and this is the first time in 20 years you've been alone. You need somewhere to put your energy. Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. That's a great point. You're right. Absolutely. There's more to you than the struggle you're going through.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Thank you. That's amazing. You have an awesome free gift for everybody. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I have a chapter number 1 of a book that I've not yet finished writing because I'm just like, okay, who knew I would be a writer? I don't know, but now I'm writing. And my next book is going to be called Overachiever, Underbeliever. And it's more of a deep dive into the imposter syndrome. There's a lot of clinical research, a lot of psychology, a lot of publications that have really gone much deeper, and a lot of brain science. I'm really excited about some of the developments out there. So
I like that.
Yeah, started to research a lot more of it. So that's going to be my next book. So I've got chapter 1 written. So if people want to get a hold of the free PDF of chapter 1, That'll be my free gift to you.
That's amazing. And everyone can find that in the show notes. So I will definitely make sure that you have a link to that. I want to say thank you so much, Maureen, for today. This is awesome. You've shared so much with us. Thank you for being so open.
My pleasure. Gosh, you're a great interview. You're fun to chat with, and glad that we connected.
Oh, me too. I know. I'm so happy that we're friends. I want to say thank you to everybody else who's listening today. You're listening to Thriving After Divorce Radio, and I am your host, Tanya Marie Dubé, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everybody. Bye, Maureen.
Bye.
Thank you again so much for joining us on the Thriving After Divorce Radio podcast. We're coming to you every Monday morning so that you can start your week with intention and some powerful advice for what you're dealing with. So please subscribe to this podcast and share it with your friends and your family. My goal is to help change 1 million lives with this work, because when you teach a woman, you teach an entire community. Everybody benefits and the love spreads. So please feel free to comment, review, share, and like. With your help, I know I can reach this goal. So have a beautiful day, and we will see you next week.